So first up is consideration of the minutes from August 28th. Anybody have any comments or corrections?
Move is accepted as written.
Second. Okay, Bill, Peter moves, Bill seconds. Any discussion? Those in favor? Those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. 3 abstentions. So they are adopted. All right, so moving on. I guess we're skipping the survey results.
Yeah, we are, Rick,
Say a few words.
yeah, sure. Rick's father, suffered a heart attack Monday night. From the last update I got, which was Monday night, he came through, but I have not spoke to Rick professionally since then. The good news is I had pretty detailed notes from our last committee meeting, and then Steve and Bridget actually met separately, and they also had some notes. So we're well on our way to, once it gets done, I think it will be perfectly fine. I haven't talked to Rick. I told him, don't check your email. So, I'll have an update, but like I said, last I heard he pulled through, so I suspect, next week, I'll send Steve an update. We did have a couple of requests from Evan for some traffic data. I was able to get Lucy to produce that for us, so that's the good news. So I moved it kind of half forward. And as you guys meet today, if there's any other requests, put them through Steve or me or what have you. So, and then the only other quick update that, Bridget might be able to help me flesh out, we defined a little bit more between Steve and Bridget on the subjects that GP will take as the chapters that we will start parallel to the chapters that you guys are writing. So populations and demographics, the more data oriented, less community involvement. Doesn't mean you won't have the final approval, but the good news is we kind of have that separation. We've defined the separation of labor for those. So.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Just a couple of comments to make. Last time, we had this version before us and so forth, and I made the point that if anybody had any input, get in touch with me. I don't think I heard from anyone, so if you had intended to, I guess you still have time to send me a note or whatever. If you're fine, then that's okay too. And then as to Paul's last point, when we look at the various chapters that are required by statute,
I'll share.
Okay.
what we tried to do was to sort out those which can easily be done by COG because they're largely data driven.
Yeah.
And in many cases, I'll pick on marine resources again, they're probably entirely unchanged since 2009. The rest of the chapters, in my dreams, I'm thinking that we may be able, individuals here may be able to produce. Evan has graciously agreed to do the transportation chapter. And so we're, a ways away from actual writing for those who are.
He's a young rising star.
Yes, indeed. And if if it turns out that we don't have enough volunteers, we'll, I guess, have to turn to you folks.
Yep.
So give it some more thought.
Yep.
So that covers it, I guess, for the.
Steve, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
I have engaged, everybody's favorite, state biologist for some of these chapters as well. So I let him know that we will be looping him in. So the gentleman that presented, yeah. So the good news is behind the scenes, I sent him 3 of those and said, hey, are you gonna do this with us? And he's agreed. So the good news is we'll have his touch, and he already sent us some of the information. So, yep.
Great. Okay. Bridget, you might, if you can perhaps circulate that chart to us. Oh,
Yeah, can I
Segue.
take this for a second?
oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, this is what we were talking about, going through writing assignments. Separately, I guess we, Paul and I were chatting about what are we gonna do about LD 1829? And we thought, depending on what happens, that right now we just put it in its own bucket and we give it its own chapter. So if things progress and we end up changing ordinances before it, or, whatever happens before comp plan, whatever happens, at least we put it separately in its own bucket.
A question on that. So that's really got to go down a dual track because it's a law And that falls into really the council and the ordinance committee has really got to dive into that. And really, as far as the committee is concerned, I mean, we can do, let's say, recommendations of where growth zones go but my understanding is that there's got to be a separate track where really the council and maybe even and the planning department is initiating this stuff. Now, is that your understanding, Tig?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone, including several counselors, felt as though we would like some more information that's not perhaps just what Bernstein Sure offered in that presentation. So I think that our plan is to do a kind of part 2 with the like practical application of what this means for our town with specific zones, which I think Bridget is going to be heavily involved in. And then to begin to kind of figure out, all right, where do we, like, how do we need to apply this, right? But that said, who's the guy at the state that we're waiting to hear some of the clarifications back from?
I have a comment on that.
Oh, great, make your comment, yeah, go for it.
Well, I think last time I said, based on information that I heard, that in,
Sorry, can I just interject because it's on the same time? My understanding from watching the meeting on YouTube was that the council could also delay the due date of the comprehensive plan to
Yeah.
allow time for us to actually incorporate the law
Yeah.
into the
oh,
plan.
sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that's a conversation. I know that TB Cog did an incredible presentation on 1829 that,
That was really good.
Really good.
right,
Yeah.
and so I think
I did.
I think as we're digesting that and as we're working through this, if people begin to feel like there needs to be more runway, I would like that to be expressed back to us. I mean, we don't want to rush this. We want to do it right, right? And so if people feel like we don't have enough time to put something together that's thoughtful and is taking all of these things into account, especially hinging on the dissemination of information back from the state on whether or not there needs to be some clarifications and when those clarifications are indeed to be expected. I think we should have a very, very open line of communication, right? And so does that work for everybody?
Thank you, Steve, for letting me interject.
Okay, Lorraine, sure.
Peter, I think I see it just a little differently. The comp plan is, let's just say, has another year of legs before we have a final plan. And I would expect that the comp plan would completely dissect the ordinance, proposed ordinance by the state, so that the ordinance committee, the recommendations coming out of the comp plan is more definitive. That's how I would see this.
No, I think it's the law and you can't bounce it off on I mean, you still got a deadline of the 1st of July. Now, things may change. And you can have a preliminary plan. Because I think you guys have got to do your work. You can't bounce it off on the completely. You could, the comprehensive plan committee can do the 30,000 foot stuff, but there's law stuff got to be done by the ordinance committee, at least so you've got 2 or 3 different plans depending on what the change is. So I don't think you can have your heads in the sand. I think you've got to do some work yourselves.
Yeah, I agree there, but I'm thinking back to when the state said, you have to have growth areas, and that growth areas came from the comp plan. And they,
Yeah.
there's, the comp plan needs to respond to the state.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just finish a point I wanted to make. I think 2 weeks ago, I said that we might have some guidance from Augusta by mid-September at some point. I've been in touch with a guy named Greg Payne, who is the senior advisor on housing policy at the Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future. Briefly, there is some musical chairs taking place in Augusta as to who's going to end up with responsibility for this. It's going to go to a new bureau or department called the Maine Office of Community Affairs, which will be known as MOCA, has been created. And long and short of it is it may be January before there's any sort of guidance, so we can't rely on that.
Which is when Christina also indicated there would be some legislative action around it as well.
Well,
Right? Yeah.
Well, it's the start of the session in January. Action may not happen until some months after the start, although the session is short and ends on the third Wednesday of April. But the real action happens starting April 1st for the next week, 2.5 weeks or so. But bills will be, due long before January 1st, but no action just because you put a bill in. Okay, so anyway, so we're on our own with legal advice, guidance and so forth, and COG's advice for the time being. We can't expect much from the state. Yes, Jane.
But what I'm hearing, what I think is likely the sentiment in the room is that we would like the comp plan to fully digest and sync up with this law so that whether we need more time or not, so that we are doing all of the thinking and growth area defining and work in conjunction. Right. As for what the town manager said, this is actually perhaps convenient that we're doing this work at this time in the same cycle because we can respond as we're writing, correct? Whether we need an extension or not.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
the
goal.
comp plan is the foundation for all of our zoning,
Yeah.
right? So we want them to be in tandem. I think that if there are things that, like if there's low hanging fruit that is not the 20,000 feet looking down that we need to do, to Peter's point, from a legal perspective, that we can do, that's not out of line with the strategy, we may need to do those things based on what the town attorney thinks and what, ordinance decides. So I think we'll have our ear to the ground on what those items might be, communicate them back, just really open lines. Probably at some point, we'll also want to get, we have Bob here, who is obviously, and Peter, both who know so much about ordinances, as Mike does too, but it would be good to get Denise Thorson in here as well, who's the chair of the ordinance committee, so that we all have open lines of communication and all the hands are talking to each other. That makes sense.
Jesse?
I read the ordinance, I watched the YouTube, I watched your presentation. It seemed to me like the takeaway was really just like growth areas you can put more units in, and areas with sewer and water are basically growth areas because you can put more units in. So I would love to just know, like, are all the areas in town that have sewer and water, are those growth areas? Because they might as well be, because the new law seems to treat them the same, and that might be something we want to think of, right? Because to me, that's sort of the bottom line, right? Is like, there's just a bunch of things the state says we have to do, and it's basically there can be a little more density or more housing units per whatever in growth areas for areas of sewer and water.
Well, that's not the fact now. That may be when
When it goes into effect.
when we,
Yeah,
No.
in a year,
So-
when the town council has to act. That's
Sure. just
what they're saying is gonna have to happen.
I probably said this before, but when the growth areas were established in 2009, it was just an unofficial idea of where we want to see growth happen.
Right. So,
Right.
yeah, we need to sync those two. Yeah, that's really important. Yeah.
Jesse, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's not necessarily automatic. That may be the decision we make. I think the state seems to be implying and encouraging that we want to make the growth areas identical to water and sewer, but we may not choose to make that decision,
Right.
even if they are nudging us.
So water and sewer makes them de facto able to have,
Right.
if you have water and
Sure.
sewer, you can put more density. It
Sure,
doesn't
but-
have to be.
What I'm saying is we could potentially
Yeah,
choose to have some portion of town water, town sewer areas not grow.
Sure.
Should we
Sure.
make that choice?
Sure.
but according to the law, you can still build extra density and have minimum lot size.
They could.
But that
People-
designation may have other implications, slowing down in other places from the plan.
Yeah, for sure.
Bob, were you looking?
And conversely, if we all play the lottery in one megabucks, we could designate future areas for sewer and water growth.
Yeah.
To say this is not a growth area today, but we are projecting that this could be a growth area provided sewer and water were directed in that direction.
Okay, Lorraine?
Yeah, so I won $8 in the, Powerball.
Nice.
That's not bad.
I'm getting there. The chart that was over here during the presentation, that kind of decision matrix, do we have, did someone capture that?
Yeah.
And so we have that, because I thought that was a powerful visual. It's like, if this, then this. And that's kind of really summarized what we're looking at from a zoning ordinance perspective and what parts of the town are going to be affected by that decision matrix.
Thank you, Jane, for doing that.
Yeah.
I'm
I
I'm
know.
passing
I
around
remember
my like
reading
rough
it.
draft map of just residential zoning impacts, for the town.
Can you put this up on the? Sorry, Bridget, big ass.
I didn't print it to PDF, I just.
I can hold it up again.
As a side note, I just gave a presentation in Bridget about 1829 and I framed it that Bridgeton, what did I say?
New town in West.
It is a lot easier to understand when you relate it with public utilities, let it rip versus growth or not growth area. It's actually, it's a function of if there's sewer. Right, and so just because I know that it was a little bit rocky, your first presentation here, it's like when I've been talking to other people just in passing, it's a lot easier to do.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's
the-
about sewer and water. It's not about the growth area. It really, yeah.
But
I mean, as far as just conceptually. Yeah.
the lever we can press is defining the growth.
Yeah,
area.
totally agree.
That's
Yeah,
committed. Like that's the thing that,
But everybody seems to like start not here, but after a while, people just start talking about in circles because they're not understanding the law.
Right.
Because it has been presented poorly a few times.
Yeah. It looks like we are stuck with our current growth areas until they're changed by a new comprehensive plan adopted by the council.
Right.
So it would be imprudent, if not illegal, for us to try to trim them back or change them in any way at this time during our tenure. I discussed with Bridget this week, it might be useful, and you guys can tell me if it is or not, to understand the current growth areas, have one map for each, which shows where the water and sewer are, where there's just water, and where there's neither.
right.
And if you find that helpful, you can just nod and we will task Bridget with.
Very
Bless
helpful.
you.
So that's basically what's on the screen.
Hey, Bridget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Good
it's
job.
in mapping software, which is really slow. So the blue water line goes out to West Cumberland. The lightest beige color is growth area off of sewer and water, 20,000 square feet lot size. We get into Cumberland Center, we start adding in that green dash, which is sewer. The sewer and water are the green and blue dash line. The darkest red is the highest density, 5,000 feet for the first 4 dwelling units and 5,000 square feet after that. So you can see in Cumberland Center, we still have places that don't have sewer that would still be at the 20,000 square feet. The next step up is that darker orange. Those are parcels that are 200 feet, are within 200 feet of the sewer line, which by ordinance are required to connect to the sewer line if their septic fails or if they're doing a new build. So that darker orange is 5,000 square feet for the first 2 dwelling units and 5,000 square feet after that on sewer. So
That's
that's,
Tuttle Road.
That's- yeah, Tuttle Road.
Yeah, if you look at the map, Tuttle Road is the place that's really in jeopardy.
Right.
Route 88 is, I think it's fair to say, largely developed
Yeah.
anyway. It's not zoned for commercial purposes in any event. Then you come up, start heading west on Tuttle Road, and you have that fairly long gap until you hit Crossing Brook, which has sewer and water, but is not a growth area. You get into the center of town and you continue to have sewer and water, but it is a growth area.
this is Crossing Brook, so it is a growth area.
Yeah, I just said that until you get to that point, you're in that non-growth area
Yeah.
stretch. And then west of the center, you do in some areas have water, but no sewer. So you massive areas of town which are not fully impacted by the new law.
And
Dining Way has no sewer, that's just water.
Well, that's both, isn't it?
Okay,
this is Swinbrook.
you don't have.
No,
No,
that's
that's fine.
Finding Way.
Anyway, yeah, the new development.
Has no sewer.
Twin Brook is that short blue extent, that, yeah, that goes
Yeah.
to the,
Yeah.
field house.
Sorry.
Yeah, you don't have an overlay of protected land.
No, there's no protected land on here, there's no unbuildable land because of waterways,
Yeah.
et cetera, right?
This
No
is just,
conservation easements.
Yeah,
this is just for zoning purposes.
Yeah.
I
right.
don't want to have all that information.
Yeah.
It's also for understanding the growth areas as they are right now and as the new law affects them.
This is good.
You need a GIS intern to.
So Tuttle Road,
Now you're stuck with me. So we have got, air better.
Tuttle Road is a force main, so you're not likely to pick up single family homes on Tuttle Road to connect into the sewer. You're gonna have a collection of homes to have a pump station. So
But with 5,000 square foot homes, you can, afford it.
you need a number, then you need,
Yeah.
10 to 15 to make that pump station viable.
But that's where, it's gonna be a lot of heartburn, I think, in that
Yeah.
stretch of Tuttle Road.
Yeah.
Not so much in the other parts of town. And really clearly not in the west.
When we do overlay, like permanently conserved lands or town-owned land, it does paint a different picture.
Yeah,
Um,
and then, yeah, like, yeah.
and then, so that's sort of on the list is to pull out like what is actually developable
Yeah.
land. And there's some other analysis that we've got that we're working on, or that I'm working on from where Ava left off on the developable land. So,
And Bridget, you told me, but maybe you could tell everybody else, down on the poor side, what do the white areas mean?
so they're 20,000, they're off sewer, so they're 20, but in a growth area, they're 20,000 square foot lot in the new, with LD 1829.
So if you made an assumption that the entire 88 corridor was served by sewer, that would be incorrect.
I have a question, maybe for Bridget. How should we be thinking about the non-conforming lots?
I can look at this, but basically my gut reaction is that most of the Cumberland, like the town center, will be now conforming.
Okay.
And wherever else I'd have to look and figure it out, but they'd all be conforming lots. And in terms of looking at the town, like town center and MDR districts, all of those lots, you'll now be able to subdivide. And I say all generously, all of those lots you'll now be able to subdivide. The lots that are on sewer and water, if for whatever reason you built your house on the, the north side of the lot, you could now sell off half of your lot by right, where zoning has been a restriction and not allowed property owners to do that. The new law will now make that an option.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Oh, yes.
What about, and maybe this goes to Peter, your point about the things that we need to be looking at now, but like setbacks?
Yeah, so we have, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've got, if we remember Christian's presentation, we really complicated setback in different zones all over the place. We, on top of it, have setback overlays because where we've got some of the smaller lots, we have smaller setbacks. So we can update setbacks.
I thought they said that in the Saucier presentation, that you couldn't muck with the setbacks.
The law, state law doesn't change your setback,
Mm-hmm.
so you can change.
You
the
can't make it
ordinance.
more restrictive though.
Can't make it more restrictive,
Can't make
right,
it
right,
Okay,
right.
good.
It'd have to be, so I think it's 10 feet. I think in MDR, and don't quote me on this, the setback overlay for DR is 10 feet on the rear and sides, maybe 30 feet combined on the side, something like that. So that's a, small distance step back, which, we could keep it like that. Maybe we end up making it 10 feet all around to give some more space for building on the smaller lot. I don't know, but it's pretty small already in those areas.
What was the height, Bridget?
That range.
14.
I just wanted to clarify the language that, because I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing lot size versus dwelling unit size. And I think the law is talking about lot size. So we're not talking about a 5,000 square foot home. We're talking about a 5,000 square foot lot.
Right.
Okay, because I think we have to be careful that, we're using the correct language and not,
Eighth of an acre lot. So,
yeah, thank you.
Is it saying that, or is it saying like, that's 9 units per acre?
you have, the minimum lot size can't be.
Minimum
Or
lot
can be
size
greater than that.
can't be greater than 5,000 square feet.
So.
We can make
minimum
it
lot size can't be
Smaller,
Greater than 1/8 of an acre.
So, because right now, like, is there any sort of setup around number of units per acre? Or units per lot, minimum lot size?
yeah.
Oh,
So in the growth area in the red here, where you kind of cross the line is you've got 5,000 square feet for the first 4 dwelling units. 5,000 square feet of a lot size. So you can have an eighth of an acre lot and you can have 4 units.
You could have like a quadplex.
And let's add in the height thing. If you make those 4 units affordable, you can go 14 feet taller than the height restrictions allowed by zoning, which in Cumberland is 40 feet. So you could go to 54 feet, and affordability gives you 2.5 times the density. So now you have 10 units on 5,000 square feet of a lot, on an eighth of an
Acre
acre.
of an acre.
It's not real character.
It doesn't still have
That's
to
a
be
different
12 square feet minimum. Is that, is there a minimum size on that? Or is that?
No, is it
Yeah.
cumulative? I don't know.
I think one of the things too, I mean, that I don't want to hijack it, but going into the public engagement side is to say, what does a quadplex look like? And I think you can have, a quadplex can look really different. There's some, I don't want to say the P word, but there's some pretty cool looking quadplexes in Portland. Right? I'm not saying all this needs to be Portland, but there are some non-threatening quadplexes in Portland. So those are the types of things that I think when you guys are thinking about your public engagement, is let's wrap our brain around what a quadplex is, because there is some that have charm and they are from the late 1800s and they might kind of fit here, right? There's some that might be a little more scary, but those are stuff when we're making these public engagements, that's the type of thing you want to try to tease out with your residents.
it would be interesting, just, we don't need to insert now, but, on that idea, like, Village Way, there's like 3 condos. What is that density?
Right.
And how does that compare to this?
And those are the types of things I think when I, last week when we talked about, it's not about surveying, it's about actively starting to watch people explore those options and just observe them and see what the feedback is once they do.
And when we're doing the charrette, can we have some examples of that? So
Yeah, that's our job. Yeah. So our job would come with big posters of maybe certain parts that are right in your town and then certain parts that are in different like the building from different towns, blank spots in your town. Can you visit that going here? And maybe the answer is no, but that's the type of stuff we would do. Or we're going to do.
One of the questions that jumps right out of me when we talk about that kind of density.
Yeah.
And we go to the affordability that the state's looking for. So are we doing rentals and home ownership, or is it strictly home ownership? And in that case, I think we're walking right into a condominium project. Yeah, if we're talking about home ownership, if we're talking about affordability of rentals, then that cuts the question to me is how do we make sure that they stay affordable, and what's the mechanism? Is it a lifetime because we've given them the density bonus?
Yeah, that's where as a town, you might consider applying deed restrictions on it, right? And so
I think the law says it has to be,
deed restricted.
it has to be enforced long-term.
Yeah.
Under some sort of
And as a side note, one of the things when we met with this new MOCA, so we've met with MOCA a couple times and Greg Kane a few times. Is one of the things that we've been trying to advocate behind the scenes is if you're gonna put these requirements on, you need some sort of centralized state unit that will do the deed restriction on behalf of Cumberland, right? Like the attorney, the language, and then when the property's turned over, taking on that administrative burden, right? If you're gonna require all this, you can't just dump it in Cumberland and say, good luck. So that has some pretty good legs among God. I don't know where it is in reality, but there seems to be this implied understanding that there needs to be, because most of our towns, even in Cumberland County, aren't equipped to actually do that. Because now you're talking about another staff member, you're talking about cost burden for you guys. So I don't know, but that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback we've been trying to bring to MOCA and Greg. It's, you know.
How are we going about, or how should we be thinking about, in our public engagement sessions? Like, we have to, I'm assuming that most residents, or some residents will know about the new law, right? But we don't get a lot of people watching our town council meetings, and I don't know how many people saw the GP cog presentation from residents on guest.
I can't believe how it makes me so proud.
But my point being that they may come to one of these and not know that there is this new law that's gonna sort of be a game changer, right? So how are we providing that digestible information so that we're actually getting thoughtful feedback during these engagement sessions and not, oh, this is rural community, when like we can't necessarily have that anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's for you guys to like tease out, because that is the top one, like how much is education up front and how much is like the engagement. But the education may not be in the form of a slide deck. It might be better as the education as the visual. Like, hey, these new laws are going to allow these types of things. Because really that's the type of stuff you're looking for. I think the second you get just hairy homeowner in here that hasn't followed anything,
yeah.
and you hit them with this law that none of us can even, you know, have a hard time, right? I would suggest saying it's possible that if everything goes according to plan, this is gonna be allowed in on top.
Like more A or
That's
B.
exactly, that's exactly right. Right, instead of getting into nitty gritty, but just be really honor the law and get examples that really model what could be there. And then you're not deceiving them, you're just making it a little bit more friendly.
So could you put just for instance, on Main Street, under this with a vacant lot, could you theoretically put in some of these triple deckers so that you've got a family that can live on the bottom, like in the cities? Grew up in a town like that, that a homeowner can live on the first floor and rent the other 2 floors. So that could be, so a trip under this law with the density bonus and all that, a triple deckers could happen on Main Street.
But it doesn't, it sounds like it's unlikely that you'd have one person owning all 3 and renting 2. You'd probably have them either all rentals or condominiumized. It doesn't sound like if we're gonna have these deed restrictions, it might be challenging to own the whole thing as an investment.
Well, the deed restrictions would only be in if you wanted to make them affordable. You can still do development on tiny lots for
Or you.
large
The answer
prices.
is yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that this could do, which makes it interesting, is you've got potentially some folks who kids have moved out of their house. They're living in a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom, 2,000, 3,000 square foot house. And they're like, I don't need all this space, but I can't afford to go anywhere else. Or I don't want to leave because all the rest of my family is here. Maybe we can look at doing a reno and splitting off part of the house. And they don't need permission, or splitting it into 3 units. They don't need permission to do that.
You refer to that as the brothel law there, right? You can have,
That's one unit. So if you had a different unit,
okay.
if you had like 3 different units, like if you had a big farmhouse, barn in the back, you wanted to convert the barn into an apartment, wanted to split the house into 2 or 3 apartments, then the ordinance would say no more than, I think it's 5 unrelated people can be living in the same unit. So 5,
Is it one property tax bill? Or are they then considered separate?
yeah, I don't know.
I'm
Well, the rental is
curious, right?
probably one, if it's one property owner, probably one. That would be interesting. We have a kind of a loaded agenda.
Yeah, no
So
kidding.
I want to take the conversation down, but I'll let you go, because we've kind of already started talking on what we're gonna do for, well, where everyone go. What we're gonna do for public engagement. The goal is to get a topic, get 2 topics and pick our date. If we can do that, to host 2 public engagement workshops.
And what they're gonna look like. So,
Yeah, and the format, and we've got all that information. Paul and I have talked, so we have some ideas too, if we're not able to sort of move forward with a couple ideas for the committee. And I can pull up those dates again
That's okay.
from my email. The other thing that I did want to let you know, and hopefully you all are on board with this, I guess you can just tell me, is I've invited all of the 4th graders from Greeley Middle School to come to town hall the end of the month or the beginning of October. And I'm gonna start them here in the conference room and give them a little activity. It's probably gonna look like, where do I live and what do I like about my neighborhood? Kind of thing. So we weren't very successful in reaching younger folks in the survey. So I thought this was another way to grab a school group with the help of Mrs. Olive.
Oh, yeah.
News to you probably, because I was emailing her today. So we're gonna try and do that, and then I have a 5th grader, and I'll see if I can get in with our social studies teacher there to get some sort of, get a whole class of kids doing something educational, but also potentially helpful for us. So if that's good, I'm gonna just keep going.
No one's gonna say, I don't want to hear from the 4th grader.
All right, so that'll be one sort of public engagement thing, but then we've got, I don't know if I need to pull up anything.
Yeah, I think our brainstorming right now is for the first 2 available dates. The first one would be a visual survey that we just talked about. So some blown up posters of 4 or 5 locations in town, 4 or 5 examples that would fit the new law that are multifamily, doing yellow, green, red stickers of letting you say, where would I like to put these and how? That could be one part of the room. We could work on what the other visual part of the room is. It doesn't have to all be housing. We don't have to necessarily crowd that with housing, or it could be more of a top-down exercise of maybe this map that Bridget showed. But I think one of them, if we can get a vote or an endorsement to say that's what we're gonna do, so we can start tapping, take photos, maybe some drone footage, get the posters, all that stuff. But the big thing in my mind is I gotta staff it and make sure you guys are happy with what's there. And then the second one, we discussed doing 2 activities. I can't remember what they were. One was the investment exercise where you have $100 to spend and you have 4 or 5 buckets where you can spend that $100 with a clear understanding that you could just save that $100 and not spend it, right? But having that as an exercise. And we thought it would make a lot more sense when you do that. Instead of debating as groups on what are those buckets, you take the top 5 of the survey, really be responsive to the survey. That's how you can lead it. Like, look, clearly these are the top 5 from you as a community. You want to flesh that out more.
What are those?
Yeah, do we know what?
I can't work on that, but right. But now, and you could also do a little bimodal exercise where you put 1 or 2 that you know are not popular and make sure that the engagement exercise matches the survey exercise, right? So I think Teen Center was that last. So put Teen Center on the table, right? And just to make sure that your results of that physical exercise mirror the survey, so then you're getting a little bit more.
Basically resurveying question 16, town investment.
Yeah, just a little bit more nitty gritty because you have a limited, I think the idea is you have limited tax dollars, you have a limited budget, right? And you can also choose to not spend, right? So it honors the fact that you could invest only $2 of your dollars, and then 98 of your dollars goes into the, the fund balance or the non-property tax bucket.
And I think when we talked through, like, the number one is pedestrian and bike paths and trails. I think we talked a little bit about doing like a mapping exercise, like, okay, if this is where we want to spend money, where are we gonna?
And you guys talked about this in your committee, and like, so those are, like, the framework I'm giving you, I think is pretty close, but we could take time at subcommittees to, or it could be after the fact where give us more details as well on, okay, hey, we like that, but we'd like to give us the map, do the trails and foot. And then we were gonna couple that exercise with, what was the other exercise we were gonna do? Oh, the Mad Lib exercise that we did where you fill in the adjectives and the nouns about your town. So that would be on one night. That wouldn't be two different.
Roger.
I think for the spending activity, I think it'd be super useful. I mean, so number two with land acquisition for open space, if we can have one of our maps of like what space does the town already have? Because from the usage, right, a lot of people don't ever go to some of like the Ryans or wherever, right? So people may just not know that the town already owns
Right.
a ton of open space. So I think it'd be useful to have that as a visual, right? So people just know like, oh, we have a ton of open space. Do we want more?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
they'll
that's
spend
good.
that money,
Yeah.
but maybe they'll also be like, oh, wow, we have like so much open space. So I think
Yeah.
just visual, that'd be great visual context to confirm, like, do we want the town to spend more money when open space comes up? I mean, I do. So maybe other people don't, and they just don't know that the town has already acquired it.
So one step further with that is try to make everything active. So I agree. I think that's an awesome idea. And then the next thing would be, tell us which ones you didn't know existed. Right? So anytime we're gonna make big photos and people are gonna look at things and interact with them,
What are they?
make sure there's something to do with it.
So like, which ones have you
Yeah,
visited?
which ones have you visited, and it could be, I visit this all the time, I didn't even know this existed. Like, those could be the options.
Yeah, I think that'd be.
Yeah, so I would say, like, as we refine that, you want them to be doing, because it's that mindset of we're collaborating, we're doing, we're not just saying opinions.
And a component of that could be if there are additional areas that you think that.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
exactly,
that's-
exactly.
Or given that Tuttle Road could be covered by quadplexes, would you now like us to acquire more open space?
Exactly.
Like, it's so different now that we have this new
Yeah.
law. It's like a
That's fair.
whole new survey. Like,
Yeah.
the town could look very different. Do you want our committee to? Do you have a different answer now?
I do, I think that.
That's hugely
that
relevant.
whole thing about the growth areas, what could go into growth
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah,
That shifts the entire
the
focus.
entire focus and everyone's survey answer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's why I think this is pretty crucial. So I guess if we can just come out of this knowing, it doesn't have to be all the dates that Bridget locked down, but the first two, so we know staffing wise, material wise, what we should do.
So on the housing one, we had, at one point talked about having, also pictures of, examples of what affordable housing looks like.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think that that would be really powerful because I think people have this conception of
Mhm.
what it could be or what it is. And, I think that would be helpful for the town to know, what, when people see what it could look like here, does that make it even more palatable for the future?
Yeah, and that's why I'm like explicitly asking now, because I would like to get these in front of you.
Mhm.
I don't want to surprise you on the day of it, right? I want you guys to look at what we came up with and say, oh, let's get more affordable, let's get a taller one, let's get ones that are, do we do some row housing, like, so if we do quadplexes, do we want 4 of those or 8 of those in a row? Or 4 across the street from each other, so you can see what a residential row looks like, so it's not just out of context.
And maybe a typical house that is done, 2 acres to 4 acres or whatever, people can see, oh, this is how it could change if I had done the 2 or 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and my hunch is we'll take our first crack and you guys will say, no, you need to add 1, 2, and 3, or, you really missed this scenario.
The plan is for the next meeting to do a dry run of these exercises here.
Even if we won't have the final product of the poster, like actually like dry run.
Might be nice to take an existing home and add something around it.
Yeah.
And then take that same existing home and add a story or two-story to it, so.
Yeah, really
So
good.
you can say, oh,
Yeah.
that's a real change.
Or just copy and paste the home and stack it on itself.
Right. 5 times.
Yeah. Or 3 times.
So Bridget, your first possible date, I think, was Monday, the 20th of October.
Yeah, I just put them up here. I've got this room Monday night, October 20th, and Tuesday night, October 29th.
So Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay, let's verify that that I didn't do it Tuesday.
Yeah, 25th.
No, I did the 29th. Okay.
Annual meeting, yes.
And I don't think you
And
can,
then you don't have to, I mean, we could do them all here in the evening. We don't have to pick a Valhalla. We could do one in October. We could push it one to a little bit later in November. We get into like a time where people are not available, but I can look for more spaces, more times.
Can I just, for the slow people in the room, a recap of the two topics? So one is housing.
Yeah.
To include the affordable housing.
I think one should be totally housing. Yep,
Okay.
agreed.
And then the second is kind of a spend your tax dollars and that lives activity night.
And nature, I mean, if we want to do a little bit, to tease out some of the trails, and we can do that as well. I don't think we're gonna be in danger of doing too many, if there's 3 activities across the table, I think that's gonna be fine. Right, so. That's what I was, right, so I think I'm gonna look to the committee, like, if you guys can maybe be a little more, like, be assertive with me and say, this is what we'd really like to do for the bike trails, because I'm a little unfamiliar with it, so if you guys wanna work with me and.
Yeah. So the bike trail thing would kind of encompass looking at open space
No.
also, or is that another
So
topic?
he's
Oh.
proposing 3 different activities on one night
Yeah.
that are all kind of visual mapping, or 2 visual mapping ones, one potentially related to there is high interest in pedestrian inclusiveness. So could
Yeah.
we map that and then could we have
We
visual
could.
map that and then the
Yep.
tax dollar thing?
Yeah.
That's-
I think the housing should probably live in one night, so I think it's pretty important that everything's happening.
Mhm.
So if there's a secondary housing activity, I think that's totally fine. So I think I'm proposing the tax, the Mad Lib, and the trail exercise, or the bike ed exercise in the same evening, separately.
Are you expecting most people to come to both of them or several of them, whatever?
I think it's hit or miss. I think the success of the first one is important because they'll come back to the second one if they feel like it's productive. So that's why I think leading with the housing and leading with that, it will get people a little bit more involved in the process.
So the tax one's not related to housing,
No, I agree. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Does the pedestrian include?
By the way, you guys can do that. This is just her and I,
Yeah, I mean, there's also, I mean, something out of the survey also was like commercial development.
Yeah.
We, Paul and I talked about what does that look like and where does it go? Kind of activities, because, grocery store came up, but is that grocery store straight up like Hannaford's Walmart? Or is that a Mill Street Market? Like, we can't make that decision for the town. The town has to sort of make that decision for it. And then, after that, how do we actually get that to happen? But, but we need to know what's acceptable, right? And how do we change zoning for that if we need to change zoning to get those commercials in?
Can we really be that cute with it though? Because you can't say, I want this, I want that business, but business has to come here. So we're just writing zoning to set conditions. And then if there's a business owner that sees an opportunity, they will try to match their vision to conditions. So, I mean, I don't think we're in the exercise of going to recruit a grocery store operator. We're just kind of saying the zoning, the range of possibility is wide, narrow, whatever.
I was gonna add that it kind of speaks into because I wrote one topic down, rural character, because I hear that's thrown around a lot, and I'm like, what does that mean? Because what it means to me may be completely different from what it means to somebody else, because people might be totally okay with building up a Main Street, or West Cumberland, but don't touch the open space, don't touch this part of the town, because we want to maintain that rural character. So it's kind of like, what does that mean to the town?
Okay, we've been around the horn on this. We do have a definition of what rural character.
I know we have a definition, but I think how people internalize what it means when they move through our town is probably different.
Yeah, it's to some extent subjective. And it overlaps with open space and recreational property and tax protected property and trust protected property. Be careful about putting too much on an agenda for a single public meeting, because there will be no discipline among the members of the public who attend. They will fly all over the place.
Engagement could give us an insight into what people consider to be acceptable in the town to maintain a rural character.
I think if we just have an evening meeting and throw rural character on the table, you're just gonna have an ugly back and forth for 3 hours and not really come out of it with any tangible progress. So I think if we can, I mean, I agree it's important, but I think we can boil it down to something like the pictures that will actually give us something a little bit more tangible to move forward with. It's just my 2 cents.
And just to be clear, these would not be meeting. I mean, in my mind, you would show up come as you are and when you want to. So there wouldn't be a beginning, middle and end to these meetings. This is something that you come and you participate in. So I think that's also important to distinguish.
That's right.
There wouldn't be any, by design, it's not supposed to be
Open comment.
structure or comments. Right, you're trying to get people in a setting where they're not discussing, so to speak, they are actively doing it. They might be doing it next to somebody who disagrees with them. And that's kind of where you're trying to create that environment. Like you can see that person next to them is okay with the row housing and but somebody loves it, somebody hates it. But there's not any sort of quote facilitated conversation for you guys.
In the three
Well,
things you've just recommended, yeah.
Oh, seriously, somebody has got to run this meeting. It cannot be,
I think that's what you guys decide. I would say that we staff it to describe the activity to somebody that walks in,
well, the townspeople are looking to us to do a good job of this thing. And some of them have reservations about the whole thing to begin with. Others are very much satisfied with the survey and so forth, with the direction in which we're moving. But it's got to be a homegrown product. And it's got to be led by homegrown individuals who have been appointed for this task. If we defer entirely to the pros, I mean that, we'll talk about this. Those in attendance are going to wonder why 14 of their fellow citizens are sitting here saying nothing and doing nothing. I really think we have to be prepared to steer the meeting. So I saw you first, Jesse, and I'll go to Evan.
I sort of agree. I don't think we want to be seen as steering the meeting because there are plenty of people in this town that think, fix is already in, but 14 of us are deciding what we want. So I think us being involved to present the exercises or to say, we want your opinion and here's how you can give it. Like, I think that maybe is important, but like, we definitely don't want to steer them. We don't want to, I think there's a fine balance between them knowing that we're involved in GP Cogs not telling us what to do, but also we don't want the perception that like, Hippie Jesse gets to decide where the bicycles are and like, I've already decided and I don't care, I think there's a tension there, right? Like
But
people
there
have opinions about.
There will be questions. There will be questions and there'll be an expectation that we have some capability of answering them.
Yeah, I think us being there to answer questions people have is great, but I think also the activities it should in some way stand for themselves and allow them to have their say, right? Like without us influencing them.
So all the more reason to be asking questions.
Mhm.
You know, somebody, Steve or somebody's got to say, we've got 10 questions here tonight, this afternoon, this morning, whatever. Let's,
And also using those dots to say, I like this better than that, or whatever the visual.
we could either, you know, pass pen and paper around, or we can, you know, show it of hands. I think we've got to go at it with,
It's gonna be a mixture of both.
Evan is up next.
I was just gonna say that a couple of years ago, I was working on a pretty controversial project in the Midwest with a lot of very well-organized opposition. And what we did that I thought worked very well, which is what we could do as committee members, is we're all individually leading the exercises. People are coming in, there could be a short presentation at the beginning, talking about the goals and objectives and why we're doing what we're doing. But then like, when we're talking about where do you want bike lanes or open space, like maybe I'm at the table with that map. And then, so when people have questions or thoughts, they're talking to me, and Paul and his team are just totally in the background. So that way you don't have a line of people down the middle aisle here giving you their opinions there. They can come in, give their opinion for 5 minutes and leave if they need to. They can stay longer and participate in more activities. And then, so everyone running the activities, just us, we all just volunteer our time to run the activities. And that way, if there is one person or a couple of people that just want to chat, which there will be, then whoever is lucky enough to talk to that person gets to talk to that person all night. But it's not like a formalized meeting, like town council meeting where, you know, you get hijacked or something.
But then how do you, great, that I agree with you, Evan. How do we then take that information? How do we, collect that and then roll it into something that's usable?
Yeah, I think it's basically like the survey, right? Someone comes and tells you something, we write that down, and we plot it on a map, and then we come and we sort of analyze those results again.
And I think too, we're talking about our first two initial engagements. And we have the opportunity to do more. And so if we find that we have, and I hope this happens, this huge influx of people that are coming to participate, and we're getting a lot of feedback, then that tells us that, okay, maybe we need to engage them one more time on this topic. And what does that look like?
I think respectfully, we're going off in a unproductive direction. We already have a pretty comprehensive survey telling us what people think and what we don't. So I don't think these meetings are really designed to get new information, because it's going to be a lot of anecdotes. And I don't think one-off anecdotes are particularly instructive for the collective wisdom. I think we already have that. I think this is two things. It's a gut check to make sure that we are kind of directionally consistent with what we've already seen in the survey, and then to create legitimacy around the process that we're engaging in, around this table. So I hear you what people are saying about trying to pull answers out of folks, but I don't think we're going to get into these meetings and have a couple anecdotes that are just these aha moments you never heard and change direction. I mean, maybe that happens, but I think this is more just building buy-in around the town in this process that frankly, 99% of the work is already going on around this table. Just my 2 cents. I agree with you, Brian. I think the piece in here, though, that in here is that there's a large educational component in here that we need to do about 1829, in fact, right? So I think that's out of the engagement piece. I think that's the biggest piece that we need to do, because that is a fundamental change to the character of the town in a lot of areas.
Yeah, but
And we need to do that twice.
right, but first meeting.
I think we show it where we can.
All right, I'm losing the thread of the discussion. are we talking about simultaneous information centers in this expanded room? With people milling about and not everybody hears the same answer at the same time, or they come away with, I mean, it's like, the old thing of the blind guy with the elephant. I mean, are they going to, are people going to walk away with the same impression of just a sliver of pie?
No, not at all. Right, I mean, I think that's impossible.
As was discussed earlier, the point was through visualization, they will be introduced to the concept and the impact of the legislation through these models.
So let's say we have 5 topical corners of the, or areas of the.
Three.
Oh, all right, well, it could be whatever number. Do we have people rotate from one to the other, so everybody gets to each informational area?
If they want to.
If they want
What do
to.
we want? No, this is our
I'd
meeting,
be like a teacher and.
because
Yeah, I don't think it's in the meeting.
if the education, we've got to make sure that everybody ends up having heard the same information.
My understanding of what Paul is suggesting is a drop-in time to a space where people can participate quietly in a visual voting activity in different ways. Evan is suggesting appropriately that perhaps we are there to field the errant questions, but this is not a meeting as much as a please stop by and engage with these visual activities that are done relatively silently, right? With stickers and coins and whatever.
Yeah,
Am
I mean,
I-
it might be more lively than a funeral. Yeah.
Yeah. So that like the busy parent on the way home from work at 5:15 could say, oh, town hall's open from 5 to 8 tonight. They put up some, I know the comp plan put up some stuff. I'm gonna swing in. Oh yeah, I like this row house. I could imagine that in Main Street. Oh, that's terrible. And then I've somehow engaged in a more qualitative way in beyond what I've said in the survey.
And
I
there-
think, correct? Is that correct?
I've got to determine who's next here. Take it then, Jesse.
I think that in having, we did 4 meetings on the affordable housing project at Valhalla, and I ran around for 3 hours with a microphone to the packed houses.
Getting comments.
And I think what I learned the most from those sessions, and I suspect that it's similar, going to be similar, is that the people that are going to show up don't want us talking to them.
Mhm.
They want us to listen.
Mhm.
And so I think that that format, which is sort of a blend of what Evan was suggesting with what Paul is suggesting, lends itself to doing that, where we can get some data with the models, the visual models, and we can make people feel heard. And that's really important, because if they are taking their time to show up, we want to do that rather than talking at them. Because if that's what they wanted, they could just come to the town council meeting or a school board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who Jesse was next.
Yeah, and I think the landowners meeting that we had is a great example of this, right? Like, I mean, there was a short presentation, but then there were just tables for the Orchard was there and LCC was there and PCLT and all these people. And some folks just came in and talked to one. Some people went around and took brochures from every table. Like I sat there and like talked people's ear off about grafting trees or whatever. And some people wanted to know about woolly adelgid and like diseases, right? And so, I mean, there were 10 tables, but there were a ton of participation. Some people talked to one topic. Some people talked to everyone, and some people talked your ear off, and some people just took the
Right, so-
information. So I love the idea that people can participate at the level they want, right? Like people who are very opinionated can talk our ear off. Somebody can just come and do the visual thing and be like, up, not talk to us at all. And either way, they feel like they've participated. And to Tig's point, if they've got strong opinions, they can feel heard. But I don't need to tell them what to think. They can tell me what they think based on sort of the 3 prompts or the tables we're sitting at. I think that's a nice mix of like, we can get information, but we can also make people feel like they had their say.
And there is to your point about, there is a validation part of this, and there is a photo op part of this to sprinkle in your comp plan to say, look at what we did, and here are some pictures of people actively smiling at each other, and oh, those people yell at each other at town hall, but they're they're both like putting a sticker on the same thing. So there's a little bit of marketing and buy-in here. But I mean, to be clear, Steve, I was never suggesting, like, I think this idea that you guys are at the pods and the stations is 100% what I was thinking.
Okay.
We are not front and center, to be very clear. I'm sitting top and drinking seltzer water. Like that's, like, so, like, this is your meeting. It's just not, it is not.
Not a meeting.
It's, right, it is intentionally made to move people away from, here's my 3 minutes on the microphone, and you must hear me, and I'm just going, it's not about your opinion. It's not about whether you're anti or positive, or you're against growth, or you're for growth. It's supposed to break all that down. You're supposed to be working as a solution oriented. Is it successful? I don't know. I mean, we try to make it successful. But to be very clear, I wasn't suggesting. I expect all of you guys to be the faces, and there will be people that pull you off to the side, and they're going to talk to you for 20 minutes. And maybe Steve has to take that, right? Maybe, you know, and then Bob has to take it, right? Like somebody's just, oh, I'm glad you're here. Let me go tell you all. That's going to happen, and that shouldn't be discounted. I mean, that's part of the process. But also, if I've never been to a town meeting, and I have a 4-year-old that I'm holding their hand, and we want to go just do little things together, and have somebody from the committee quietly observe that we're doing it. That's what we want to do too. But I didn't mean to suggest that it wasn't you guys, it's totally you guys. It's not people from away.
To some extent, the elephant in the room is the new state law and how that could affect this town, what changes. How will we present that to people? Because if they're working without that information, in a way, they're working with a void.
Um,
The hope is that the pictures would be compliant with 1829.
But if people think, oh, well, I really don't want development anyway, this is pretty nice the way the town is. They don't understand that there are gonna be things that could seriously happen and change the town that they don't want changed.
To be clear, there's nothing wrong with 2 or 3 of you manning that exercise and educating in a natural setting. In a, like, hey, you know, here's a pamphlet, or here's no cost here. Like, we can have copies of all this information. But it's not I'm standing at the room telling you what about this law. It's a little bit more intimate. So you could get Steve, or you could get Bob, you get me, or you could get Tig that just says, oh, hey, have you heard about it? If you haven't heard about it, let me just show you. There's some pictures. Like, there's plenty of education. It's just not in that traditional format of, here's a slide deck, I'm telling you what's happening. And, you know, it's more of you get more of a one-on-one.
Is Phil Saucier's presentation proprietary, or, because what, I don't think, you know, the Press Herald spends more time showing people picking apples or their noses or whatever, and nothing on, kind of key. And I'm not so sure it wouldn't be a bad idea to, have some kind of a short thing. Are you aware of this new law this is in the crier? And then please see this presentation by Phil Saucier from Willie Booger and what law firm. And that way you're going to get probably 500 people to take a look at it. And probably 498 are going to have their holy shit moment.
Yep.
And it gets out there. What are your thoughts on that, Tig?
I think we've talked a little bit, they just started brainstorming about how we can get that information out there because it's really important for people to know. I mean, I think there's what, 3 hours?
Whatever we want them to be.
Okay, so I think that having a very digestible either handout or a big sign that's like, change is coming, come this date, like this is what is now allowable. And then, because I think if you have a presentation at 5:03, there are going to be people coming in at 5:37 who have missed it. And so you need to have that constant visual cue and hopefully a couple of people that can either we have some, I'm not sure who said that if you begin to get into the weeds of the law, that's going to be really confusing and it's going to be chaos, right? So it's how can we explain this in a way that's digestible, that we're all sort of reading from the same song sheet in terms of what's important for people to understand so that they can do that exercise and that we can then take the results of that exercise and think about them as we create the plan.
What's Saucy's presentation?
Huh?
What about putting out Saucy's
Oh.
presentation on the crier with, just a short thing beforehand?
Yeah, oh.
Because nobody knows.
Yeah.
And once everybody starts waking up, that's when Christine, and Teresa start getting people banging on their door saying, what have you done? But in the meantime, the public has some idea of the seriousness. So it's something that the council can deal with.
I think what I would like to do, and this is what I was sort of alluding to at the beginning of the meeting, is have our part 2 presentation that is practical, that will happen at a council meeting coming up quickly, and then we could disseminate we could make it into a little video that we put in the crier, right? Like, here's a snapshot of, we do like a thing called Council Corner, and it can be like, here's the snapshot of the presentation that Bridget did that's specific to like what this is going to, because the Sonosphere one is a lot of Scarborough stuff, right?
No.
Well, this was already this one that I'm looking at is, but this isn't like specific to Cumberland in terms of like what it looks like. You know, like Penny Afterman, when she was here, said, we need to understand what it looks like for me as a resident on this XYZ. And so I would suggest that, I mean, this is a great presentation, this is supplemental, but what does this mean for our community? Have that presentation at the council and then disseminate that out. They have both the recording, people can come to the meeting if they want to, and that we can
So is
continue.
Bridget gonna do the presentation at the council?
I mean, that is my hope that,
We can't have Madam Queen again.
no, she's, no.
Let me go to James.
And so, I want to caution the committee to not get too far ahead of their skis.
Yes.
We get all this information out and we're like, big changes coming July 1, 2026. And the legislature opens an act and postpones it a year or two, like they have been known to do with other big bills like LD 2003. Then we will have done all of this, which is completely fine with me, but for a delay. Like, are we ready to implement these changes right now? Then let's do it. If not, like, let's not go too fast.
Okay, let me begin with Jane.
So, as a second, following on that, Bridget, tell me about what you are thinking about and the maps that you have in your mind so that we as a committee can even understand what bits of land in Cumberland this affects in what ways. Like, I feel like I understand the law and I have no understanding of how it affects Cumberland. My first look at it was the little, orange part today, and still that doesn't include what does the land trust own, what's the school, and so I would love to hear how you're digesting this and what you're doing. And then as a sort of addendum, it seems maybe abundantly clear that we're not going to be ready to attack any of this with the town and the public by October 20th. It's like, we don't even understand.
But I guess I'd suggest you don't need to, right?
Right, so
I think
Perhaps
that
our topic.
you don't want to lose the forest through the trees,
Sure,
right?
but perhaps our topics for our first meeting should not include, we could do, where do you want bike paths without any digestion of this? We could do where do you want your tax dollars invested without digesting any of this? So we could consider just getting our heads around this as a group or we engage the public. And I would just love to hear what you're doing with the maps.
Bob and then Josh.
I think what we might need to focus on is narrowing the scope of what we're going to ask the public. And I think that one of the biggest thing we need to do is outreach to let people know that we're going to have a meeting. We put out signs for vote, when we have elections and stuff like that. I think so signage would be helpful, in the crier, but we had talked about a couple of Saturdays. But I think that's our first meeting should be fairly limited and engage the public so that we can go away, do a little digesting, and then engage them again with a, with a greater depth. But I think the first initial public stab should be limited.
I think that's a really good point, Bob. When we're talking about scaring people with this state law changes coming, I think we gotta slow down and think twice. Because if you do that, you're gonna stir everybody up. And then they're gonna say, well, not in my town, you can't do that, change it. Well, our hands are tied. That's the whole point of the state law, is that our hands are tied and we can't control these things at the town level. So I don't see why you go stir people up intentionally. And then once they complain about it, you say, sorry, can't do anything. So we're setting ourselves up to be in a really ugly place. And I know you have to educate, but the hysteria is not gonna be constructive.
We can do something. I mean, we can change our growth areas in the comp plan. That's what we can do.
I would just go back. So that's why I think these visualizations put out in a non-threatening way. What do you think about this? What is your reaction to this? If it were to happen, it's a non-binding request for feedback. And so that's what we're doing. We're, again, legitimizing the process, giving people visual input to react to. We get their substantive comments and reactions. And then as we continue this process, we refer back to that and narrow it down and work for it. So I do think we are overcomplicating what I think we're hearing from our colleagues here about how we can do this.
I just had a thought. I'm thinking that we need to lead off with a good foundational meeting. And I'm thinking that the title would be Cumberland Today. What is Cumberland today? And it's multifaceted. It's town-owned property. It's trust protected property. It's open space. It's agricultural uses, commercial zones. It's the key utilities of sewer and water and where they are. And I think that if people have a grasp of what are the fundamental parts of the town as it is today, we would then move on to what layers are added to our current situation by the state law as it impacts our current zoning and our current spaces and our desired rural character. But I'm thinking that without kind of like Cumberland 101 as the first step, if you jump immediately to Cumberland 305, then you're setting yourself up for a bad result.
Can you explain a little bit more about how you anticipate doing that? Because
Yep.
let me just tell you what my reaction is. It infers that there is a certain sector of people who respond to that meeting and want to come, but it also doesn't. Would those same people be the ones that would be attending the events thereafter? We're trying to have these such that we're catching people coming home from work on a random night. So I'm just the continuity. I really appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's a good idea, but the continuity and the impact may be limited based on the audience available.
I was at the meeting, Jesse, that you referred to, where there were multiple stations within this room, and each station had a topic. And you didn't have to go to every one, but it was your choice as a resident, which ones you wanted to, didn't want to concern yourself with. But among the, I think critical stations would be, and I guess I just rattled this off, town-owned land. Where is the water and sewer? Where are the growth areas? Where are the trust-owned areas? Where are the trust-protected areas? Where are the private areas which are enrolled in current use taxation, which generates rural character but doesn't produce recreation or access? If we can have various stations that each one is devoted to one of those topics, then in theory, people would emerge with a better understanding of the town as it is today. And again, those folks, as was mentioned earlier on the recreational property question, there are some that aren't used by a large percentage of the common people. And a lot of people may not know how many properties the town owns, how many recreational and publicly usable properties. I'm not talking about the public works garage. That's not where you play ball or the brush dump. I'm talking about the properties that generate rural character, are important to the town's past and future, and what sort of things can you do where? A lot of people, perhaps depending upon the length of time they have lived here, simply may not know that. And not have the image of the town as a whole, as you showed on the map tonight, Richard. So
There's a Cumberland resident orientation planned for October 16th. So you will be piggybacking on basically all of that information being held by town staff, and like CCLT shows up, Eco Maine shows up, we've got the rec department, those kind of things. So there's potential that we could target pushing some more maps out of the information. I mean, I know CCLT shares their maps and they include town-owned properties with easements. We could do some fun facts on posters and couple that with like prior campaign on Cumberland 101, and then get that information out before workshop where we're like trying to not give, we're trying to take information.
Okay, Meg.
Yeah, I agree with Nancy's point. I'm worried about time capacity. People, I think the whole point of the public engagement, both for the survey and for these events, is to be able to get resident feedback without them needing a course in order to give us their feedback. That's the point of those visuals. That's the point of these like vibe checks, frankly, because the average resident, most people don't have the time or capacity, in my opinion, to engage deeply in like zoning laws and growth areas. I don't know what those mean. Like, you can't put me in front of a crowd of people to explain that still. And I've been sitting here with you guys for 9 months. Like, it's really complicated stuff. And like, people just are trying to live their lives in this town. So like, how can we help them live their lives better?
Well, what do you think about the idea then of informational stations describing all?
I think it's too much. I think it's asking too much of people. I mean, and I think we should just like encourage more people to go. Like, it sounds like the town staff already does like an educational event, but like, I think we gotta like really focus these engagement opportunities on getting feedback from people on things that we make it in a digestible way.
Okay, well, Jane.
Yes, Nancy, point well taken that this is perhaps in my desire to fully understand this complicated issue, I'm missing the boat on like the public. Not every single person who needs to be surveyed needs to have that complexity, and there's still plenty of information, vibe checks to get from them about like, do you like the way this looks? There's a new law coming that may change our zoning in Cumberland. How would you feel if this was here? That's still information, whether they know all the nuts and bolts. So their mind change. There is totally a way to have an event that maybe soft launches the law without talking about all of it and still getting some helpful information. I do think your activities as described could be gently and introduced in vague general language, and we could still get information to people. Yeah.
Considering.
And I think we need to kind of maybe take just a baby step back as to what the purpose of the engagement is. And the purpose of the engagement is to inform and advance the work that we all have been doing. And so I think that getting meaningful feedback, even if it's stickies on a map, is going to be really meaningful to me as a person who's on the housing committee to go, oh, wow, look at all the people that actually like this, ooh, this is not really popular. And that's really gonna inform what we look at and decide to encapsulate in the housing section of the comprehensive plan. And so I think that it's less about educating people on zoning and ordinances and laws and more about getting additional feedback on the topics that we already have gotten feedback on via the survey, but getting it in a different context and in a way that's engaging people differently from a survey.
Can we like move on, like, I love your ideas. I'm like comfortable.
It's in your hands now. I'm just.
Ideas, but like, I'm just wondering how we move, how we get a chat from people and how they're feeling about that structure. It's like the drop-in style meeting. Are we directionally heading in a way that people feel comfortable?
We'll get a show of hands. Make a motion.
I'm still interested in activities like where people don't want development, but I don't know how we.
Next door to them.
Like, I don't know if there's a meaningful way.
I think you need to.
I don't know if there's a meaningful way, like,
a lot.
people in the survey said they support or somewhat support like land acquisition for open space on behalf of the town. Like high interest in wildlife habitat and conservation. So like those are priorities of the residents. Where do people want, like tackling I don't know, voting, I don't know, some kind of activity around open space is still of interest to me. I don't know if there's any way to structure it in a way that would be meaningful, but I'm still interested in that. As just to add another topic into the other three that you
I
mentioned.
mean, we could do where should we build? Where should we conserve? And
Yeah.
where should we put, where do we need to, I mean, we want to invest money in sidewalks. So the survey says, where trails or bike paths, where do those go?
And it may not be bad, just, or I don't know where we're gonna do this, but at some point, we're moving forward with the Route 100 roundabout, right? So DOT's put out there.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
We got the
I
money.
haven't heard.
I mean, the DOT's put out the RFP, so all signs point to we're moving forward.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Where the gas station.
Sorry, yeah,
Rusty Lamb.
roundabout, and it's a really big project. It will also include sidewalks. And so I think that, and NDOT's put out the RFP, and, you know, I don't, should be full steam ahead, right?
The design has been awarded, yeah.
But so that also is at some point, like probably going to be a growth area, right? And so,
It is already.
okay, so it is a growth area and we expect a lot of growth to happen, especially since that project is happening, right? And it also is going to be, I think would also be important to tackle things like mixed use, right? Like the zoning, what you want that particular zone to look like, right? Or be changed in any way. And on top of that, at some point, we're gonna need to tackle the hours of operation in all of the zones for different parts of town, because we said we were gonna do that with the Rise Pizza thing, and
You're gonna do that or you're gonna?
no, the comprehensive plan is going to make those recommendations on hours, because after chatting this through with the council and with the town manager, the comprehensive plan makes the recommendation for our zoning, and we kicked it back to the comprehensive plan when I emailed Steve back in April, and when we kicked this off, that was one of the things the council was looking for a recommendation on. And I think that there's a lot of confusion about, hey, the Rusty Land aren't gonna be open for 24 hours a day, but there can be an extra hour in the TCD, right? Like we need to create and tackle a very difficult issue, which I would like one of those public engagement sessions to at least get us some more information on, because we didn't include anything in the survey.
I think that brings to a really good point that we're gonna have to ultimately make a lot of these decisions in the comprehensive plan committee. So my personal opinion here is, let's stop spinning our wheels about getting the world's best engagement session with public on a Wednesday night. Let's just go through this. They want to show up, they will. If they don't, they don't. But we need to go ahead and make the decisions, because these are the people that are digging into the information. And I think we need to plow ahead with like some real tangible substance here. Because I don't think these are
this is going through, these meetings are, this is putting some window dressing of public engagement on things. It's not gonna change. We're gonna be here a few months after, and we've got to make decisions. So let's focus on the details of the decisions we're gonna make.
But the decisions will be made not just upon the survey, but upon the comment that we receive at these various.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think we're gonna get much.
Um, hard to know, hard to know. I've seen public meetings that have suddenly become very explosive and informative at the same time.
But it sounds like I'm trying to still understand, like directionally, are we, like, people are suggesting like specific topics that they want covered, activity ideas. Are we comfortable with moving forward? Because we need to give GPCOG the green light or not on this, and then they're gonna come back to us next meeting with specific, like a more specific agenda based on the discussion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I am comfortable and would like to make a motion that we move forward with GPCOG and Bridget's plan as laid out and give us a dry run of the activities.
I'll second that.
On a date.
Do we
Saturday.
Jesse, we're missing a date in your
I like
motion.
Wednesday better than Monday, but
Yeah.
so.
Wait, so are we still talking about doing two separate events, like the housing on October 20th, for example, and the other ones? Or no?
I think
Sure.
Paul was saying
We-
all three activities that he was proposing would be on one evening, and then we could still do another engagement.
I heard-
Honestly,
One for
this is
housing.
what- yeah, if you guys went two different. Right, and because the dry runs will be kind of rough, or I'm not gonna have the poster board, look at us like little 8x10 stickers. So we could do all that fun exercise, you make that decision later, like, let's do a couple of the exercises, and you guys can decide what's on what. You know, we could set what's on, I just want the date set, I don't care really what's on them yet. I just wanna know staffing wise, and for all of our, you guys have some advertising you need to do to get people here on October 20th, that's all, you know, so.
But we thought you had suggested doing one.
Agreed.
on housing.
Yeah, and I mean, that, it's still firmly my suggestion, but if we're not ready to do that until you guys experience it yourself, I respect that, that's all I'm saying. But I will do a housing drive.
Jump in with a procedural
Yeah.
thing here. We have at least part of a motion that's been made. I'm not sure you were finished, Jesse. When you said that you moved Bridget's and Paul's plan.
Yeah.
Did you mean just housing?
I meant housing for one, and then the three activity for the other. I think both of those are good.
Well, no, on one night.
Oh, no.
For the first meeting, what are you moving?
Housing meeting one, three topics meeting two.
But let's do the first, if I may.
Sure.
I suggest that we just plan the first meeting with some precision.
Sure.
So we
Housing
understand.
meeting Wednesday, October 29th would be my preference.
Comprising what activities that you mentioned, Paul, or just we're deputizing you to come up with them. That's what I'm confused.
It could either, but right now it would be, from what I'm hearing, it would be the Scooby-Doo LD 1829, trick them into working with 1829,
Yeah, okay.
right? That would be one. That was my original pitch to you for the housing. After hearing your feedback, I sense that we can do some sort of large map where we can maybe do some sidewalks and bike trails in addition to the housing
At that same meeting.
at the same meeting. And we can dry run those next week. But I would say that I think we can tackle
Those two
those
activities.
two because they are related. And we staff, if you deputize GP5 staff, we'll try to find a way to honor this. The conservation of open space, right? Like you mentioned, like, you're interested in where people don't want to go.
That's like they.
Yeah, that can be part.
Okay, so Peter, Kathy and I have a conflict on the 29th. It's the annual meeting of the Historical Society, which starts at 6. So I don't know how anybody else is set for the first debate.
Monday, October 20th.
No, we have. No, we haven't. No, haven't said no or yes
I
to
like
anything.
it's better than Mondays, but if Mondays work better, we can say Monday.
Let's go with the 20th.
20th. So moved. Amend my movement.
Okay, so you're moving The 20th is the date.
Activities is laid out.
Dry run.
Yes,
20th.
You can say, yeah, and I'll lay
Yeah,
out,
dry run.
we'll do dry run in 2 weeks.
I seconded it.
You'll have to use your imagination. to be dry.
Peter seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion then? Okay, we'll go to a vote. Those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? The vote is unanimous in favor. All right, it would be good if
Then make a second. then.
you were to send just a brief outline or statement as to the plan for the night.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Something that Bridget can circulate to us like.
Yeah.
So,
We make a second motion for
Are
the
we-
second meeting?
Yeah.
Question. Are we okay with the other dates proposed, or do we, I mean, you can suggest another date and I can look
What's
at
the
it.
other date?
They're pretty close together, 'cause I didn't know what we were gonna do, but we've got the 29th. We've got Saturdays, 2 Saturdays, October 25th and November 1st. Do
I
you
think we
want
should have a month of time.
a month apart?
Yeah.
That's, because I think we're gonna
Digest it and.
reevaluate how that first meeting went. I think we need some time. to-
Agreed about.
That's
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
actually, Monday is the wrong year. Okay. In the week beginning Monday, October 20, we have our second meeting of the month, that the Thursday of that week. Here's a thought, that we go through the experience of the event of Monday, and on Thursday, the 23rd, when we're scheduled to be here anyway, we do sort of postmortem and decide how it went, how it could be better, and possibly the next date for the second meeting.
Is that too late?
I think that's too
You
late.
know, that's up to you guys. I mean, it's not, I mean, we can tap. I mean, that gives us plenty of time. That's, so I'd leave that on you.
I mean, it.
They've at least selected a date.
General timeline. Waiting too long, or does that keep us on track?
No, I think that's fine. I was trying to get 2 in before the holidays.
Yeah.
Well,
The
no,
early December.
Oh, you can get that.
all right, so
In like January, February, and then more towards April. for like,
So Saturday, November 1, is just 9 days after our second October regular meeting.
Too close.
Jane says too close. So do people want to go more toward the rapid fire thing, or the more, as Bob suggested, more spread out? So in November, we meet on Thanksgiving Day and also on Thursday, the 13th.
We do all we vote on potluck style.
Or her.
So we set the 20th next week after we do dry run. We can do feedback and think about what we want.
Yeah.
So we could at least reserve a date in November.
Then I'll reserve some dates.
Later in
I'll go
November.
crazy on the calendar because I know town hall loves when I do that.
Well, can we consider the 1st of November as tentatively reserved?
Yeah, I mean, they're all reserved for us. Once we don't need them, I will release them.
Okay.
And if we think like an evening session is better, then I can grab this space, or football's over, I can grab West Cumberland.
Don't forget the craft shows are coming up on Saturdays. People are involved.
All right. So you're saying pick the second date
At our next
at our
meeting.
next meeting, which will follow the meeting of the 20th. Yes?
Nope, no.
Dry run. No.
Dry run.
What do you mean?
We're gonna get it then by the dry run about how comfortable we are with the meeting, how the meeting is gonna go on the 20th. So at that meeting in 2 weeks, we then revisit when the second meeting should be scheduled based on our level of comfort, how that's gonna go and.
And we're doing all the activities at the dry run, right? Not just the housing one.
I'm not gonna have, I'll have the housing activity, which I thinking might end up feeling in two activities, in a good way, but two things to do, right? The map that can help you talk about your sidewalks and bike trails, which I know you will help with on my email. And then
I mean,
an exercise of, an education of here is conserved land, where else would you not want to develop? Which would be a third station.
So when,
And I'm thinking at this point, we could make like the housing and the fuel. Just get the drive.
Only the activities for the 20th would be at the next one.
That's all I would, yeah.
And, okay, so then we would make, when we're making the decision on the next, we're making the decision on what the next activities are following the actual event itself.
I think that's what you guys are discussing, from what I can tell. I think, so I'll let you take it.
all right, I'm a bit betwixt and between as to whether the 20th is a sort of an in-house dry run, or is this open to the public?
Yes.
our next meeting.
Our next
Meeting of this committee.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's.
Well, actually, we still have to do the final survey approval. So allow some room for that.
Yeah.
Well, we do really have to get that done. And off our table.
I would, that's next meeting as well. Yeah, my dry run won't be 2 hours. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's a topic in and of itself.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
I'm confused about the dry run. Is it September 25th?
September
Yeah, September
25th,
25th.
2 weeks. from-
And by the way, the dry run's just you guys. I'm just throwing out some very rough,
25th, you said.
so you can get on your feet and kind of.
And then at that meeting, we start advertising the October 20th event. After that, after we rubber stamp it on the 20th.
I will hit the ground running very quickly.
I was gonna start advertising like next week prior.
Yeah.
And October 20th, we'll talk about it.
No,
You would have room to change things at that point, I would assume. You know, you can just say that there's an event happening. You don't have to say what
Sure.
topics you'll be covering completely if you decide to change your mind on that.
okay, so we do meet in October, we meet Thursday, the 9th, which would be a regular meeting before the event on the 20th, to be followed by the second monthly meeting on the 20th. Okay, and we're reserved on November 1st, if we want to do something so close after the event on the 20th. We choose not to, no harm done.
And I'll book 4 spaces further out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Are we there for tonight?
Got what we needed.
I have what I need.
You do.
I know what's right in front of me, so it's good.
Okay, good. Anything else with questions or thoughts? Like
Can I
to
say
share?
can I just say one thing? If you come across a picture you would like include an exercise, feel free to email me directly or Steve, right? So if there's a development that you would like to consider to Steve's point, it doesn't have to all come from GP Cog. So if there are pictures you want to forward along to committee members, just send them along. I reserve the right to say, well, that misses the mark of this exercise, but if you want to brainstorm something, send it along. So.
Any last minute thoughts?
Are you getting ready to adjourn?
It sounds that way.
I
It
think
seems
so.
that way.
Yeah, I think so. Then let's-
I have a last minute thought.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
It's not really a thought. We had mentioned co-housing, early on in our meetings about, what types of housing we want to see in our community. And I recall that I visited a co-housing project up in Brunswick 25 years ago, basically the birth of this thing. And so, over Labor Day weekend, my wife and I took a ride up there and went through the project and I touched base with Bridget and I asked her to do a little digging around for me and she actually found that they have a website and they have a pretty good analysis of what it is. And I just was going to ask that Bridget send it to all of you, just to review, to watch it. It's a very interesting concept. It's a, I think it serves an important part of our housing mix. And I frankly would like to, some feedback, either personally or collectively. But anyways, it's just something that we should consider as a comp plan. What are some of the other things that are being done around the country? And this one, even if you are curious enough to take a ride and see it, it's pretty eye-opening. It's 100 acres of land. It's almost all of it is preserved. The houses are very close together. Most of the houses share a community garage. Some houses have an attached garage. They have walkways between them. They discourage driving to your house. Kind of come into your central parking area. You've got carts or, things like that. There's lots of trails. There's community gardens there. It's a, my wife says, well, you never move there. And I said, yeah, well, you're right. They wouldn't have, they wouldn't have me, but anyways, I would ask that you all take a look at it. Can you send that?
Yeah.
Great.
This is the 2 Echo. Is that the one?
Yes. Yeah.
Question. So clear in the demographic results of this survey, underrepresented people with kids, working people, people under 65. So 5 to 8 on a weeknight is great, driving home from work. Is absentee voting live at that time on Monday, October 20th?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
And is it could we make it available? And say absentee vote and participate in our activity, 2 for 1. I don't know, just try to get people in. Busy people in.
They're not gonna have this room set up with voting for early voting, are they?
No.
It's a minor election, but I'm just like, how can we get people in?
That'll
Only they don't like, I know. We lost our chair. Oh, you just had power for like.
Was it broken
Hearing no other comments.
Right. Yeah.
If I was about to initiate a coup.
Anytime.
You like, I say, like today or? Okay, well,